The golden morning sunlight streamed through the enormous windows of the Anderson mansion, painting everything in soft warmth. Yet, inside one of the many lavish rooms, the scene was anything but ordinary. On the floor beside a large, expensive bed, two small children lay fast asleep, one wrapped in a thin, worn-out blanket, clutching a teddy bear tightly, the other, a little boy in a silk pajama set, nestled close to her for warmth. Their tiny faces, pressed together, carried an innocence that words could never capture. Standing frozen at the door was William Anderson, a man whose name commanded power in the business world, but in that moment, he was just a father, speechless, shaken, and unsure what to feel. Before we dive into this emotional journey, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread if you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances. This story will remind you that sometimes, the richest hearts are found in the humblest places. William Anderson was known across the country as a cold, determined billionaire. Every magazine that featured him called him the man of steel, brilliant, ruthless, and untouchable. But behind that iron image was a man who had built walls not only around his empire but also around his heart. Since his wife passed away 2 years ago, William had buried himself in work. His 6-year-old son, Oliver, lived in a mansion full of toys, but he was lonely. The house was big enough to echo, yet no laughter filled it anymore. Maria, the maid, worked quietly in the background. She was gentle and humble, a widow raising her daughter Emily, who was around the same age as Oliver. She lived in the servants' quarters, far from the glamorous life upstairs. Her daughter often waited in the hallway when Maria cleaned the rooms, watching Oliver's world from afar, his toys, his colorful books, his sparkling room that felt like another planet. One afternoon, Maria was cleaning the study while Emily sat outside on the marble floor with a small notebook and a broken crayon. That's when Oliver walked up to her, holding a toy car. He asked what she was drawing, and for the first time in a long while, Oliver laughed when she shyly showed him a picture of a family holding hands. From that day forward, a silent friendship bloomed. Emily would tell him small stories her mother used to tell her before bed, and Oliver would share his cookies and crayons. Days passed, and their bond deepened. Emily was different. She didn't care about Oliver's toys or his big room, she cared about his smile. One day, when the rain poured heavily outside and thunder echoed through the house, Oliver was found hiding under his blanket, trembling. His mother's absence haunted him during storms. That evening, Maria had gone to buy groceries, and Emily heard Oliver crying from the next room. Without hesitation, she walked in and sat beside him. He looked at her with tear-filled eyes, and she simply held his hand. Eventually, they both fell asleep on the floor, Oliver's head resting on her shoulder, the sound of thunder fading as comfort took its place. That was the moment William found them the next morning. He had returned early from a business trip, still wearing his suit, expecting to find his son asleep in his bed. But what he saw left him speechless, his son, the heir to one of the country's wealthiest families, sleeping peacefully in the arms of a maid's daughter on the carpeted floor. At first, his instinct was anger. How dare this child enter his son's room? How could Maria allow this? He was about to call out when something inside him froze. The scene before him wasn't one of disobedience, it was one of innocence, of care. Emily's small arm was wrapped protectively around Oliver, who, for the first time in months, looked calm and safe. The billionaire's heart softened in a way it hadn't in years. Quietly, he stepped back, his emotions tangled between shock and tenderness. That day, William didn't say a word. But later, he called Maria into his study. His tone was controlled, but his eyes carried confusion. Maria apologized again and again, terrified she'd lose her job. She explained how Emily must have wandered in when she wasn't home, and she took full blame. But William didn't shout. Instead, he asked softly, "Does she always comfort him like that?" Maria hesitated before nodding, tears filling her eyes. William dismissed her gently, but his mind couldn't let go of that image, his son finding comfort in someone else's child when he, his own father, had failed to give it. In the days that followed, William began observing quietly. He noticed how Oliver laughed more when Emily was around, how his son's drawing suddenly had two figures, a small girl and a teddy bear beside him. One morning, William asked Maria to let Emily spend a few hours with Oliver daily. She hesitated, unsure if it was appropriate, but he insisted. Slowly, the mansion started to feel alive again. Oliver's laughter echoed through the hallways, and William found himself smiling without realizing it. One sunny afternoon, William returned home early again and found the children in the garden. Emily was teaching Oliver how to make daisy crowns. Her laughter filled the air like music. Watching them, William felt something stir deep inside, something that money could never buy. He realized that all his wealth, all his success, had failed to fill the void that kindness and innocence had filled so easily. That evening, he called Maria again. This time, his voice trembled with sincerity. "Maria," he said, "you and your daughter have given my son back his smile. Thank you." Maria couldn't stop her tears. For the first time, the billionaire bowed his head, not as an employer, but as a grateful father. Weeks passed, and the bond grew stronger. On Emily's 7th birthday, William surprised her with a small gift, a new set of crayons and sketchbooks wrapped in gold paper. She gasped with joy, her tiny hands trembling. When she thanked him, William knelt down and said, "Keep coloring the world with your kindness, Emily." Those words, though simple, carried years of unspoken healing. But life tested them again. One cold winter night, Emily fell seriously ill. Maria couldn't afford proper treatment, and she quietly decided to take her daughter back to their old village. When William found out, he rushed to the hospital himself. Emily lay pale and weak, clutching her teddy bear. Without hesitation, William called his personal doctor, paid every medical expense, and stayed until she was out of danger. When she finally opened her eyes, he smiled and said, "You're stronger than you think, little one. You gave my son courage. Now it's my turn to help you." From that day forward, William's heart changed forever. He offered Maria a permanent home within the mansion, not as servants, but as family. He set up a small foundation in his late wife's name to help children like Emily, those who came from humble beginnings but carried hearts full of love. And every morning, as the sunlight filled the house, the sound of laughter and warmth returned to the place that had once felt so empty. William often found himself standing at the same doorway where it all began, watching Oliver and Emily playing together, their friendship as pure as the morning light. In those quiet moments, he realized that the greatest riches he ever gained weren't in his bank accounts or his empire, they were in the small acts of love that rebuilt his broken heart. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Thread for more true-hearted tales that remind us of the beauty of compassion and change. Before you go, tell us in the comments. What part of this story moved you the most, the billionaire's change, the children's friendship, or the power of kindness? Because sometimes, the smallest hands teach the richest hearts what love truly means. Itself through perseverance, humility, and the courage to keep doing the right thing when no one is watching. The report that landed in a trash bin did far more than save a company. It reminded everyone in that silent boardroom that respect should never depend on a person's position, because the next life-changing idea may come from the one everyone overlooked.